This House would like to thank the Leader of the Government and now invite the Leader of the Opposition to give his case.
Thank you. We heard from the last speaker a lot about why tobacco is bad and why the consumption of tobacco is bad. But what we didn't hear a lot from the last speaker is how exactly that justifies a ban and why that justifies an outright ban on Bard campus in particular. And what I'm going to talk about, and what my partner and I are going to talk about in this case, is the proper way to address tobacco consumption on campus. And we don't think it's an outright ban, because we think that's wrong not only for political and moral reasons, more of which will be discussed in my partner's case, but also, as I will talk about, for practical health reasons, and also for reasons of enforcement, which we don't think that side government has properly considered. So I'm going to start by refuting some of the points that were brought up by the previous speaker before I get into my own 2 points, which are going to be how this resolution damages and distorts the intellectual mission of Bard College, and also how this resolution will further delegitimize the place of Bard security on campus. But first, to respond to the argument that were made by side government. They talked first about the health of the individual, and they talked about how nicotine is addictive like cocaine, and that there is no such thing as a personal choice when it comes to consuming that. The problem that we have with this argument is that the way we respond to people with cocaine addictions is not by denying them cocaine altogether, because what happens then? Either they go into intense withdrawal, or they go back and they find ways to use it anyways. We think that the way to actually address the health issue of something as addictive and as damaging as nicotine is to be looking at harm reduction. Now, side government didn't actually define whether or not they were going to be talking about banning all tobacco products on campus or not, but in discussions coming up to this debate, we had defined this debate as containing all tobacco-related products, including, let's say, snuff. So if we're going to go on that resolution, we should look to a 2003 study funded by the Swedish government. The fact is that in Sweden, tobacco users live much longer lives than tobacco users in other European countries. And the research showed that the reason this was is because people in Sweden take part in a tobacco usage known as snus, which is a dry, smokeless tobacco. And in fact, the study showed that people who quit smoking and began using snus had the same rate of contracting cancer as people who quit smoking and didn't use any other tobacco product at all. The fact is that it's a lot easier to quit smoking and use another kind of tobacco product than it is to quit smoking and not use any kind of product outright, such as this ban would necessitate. And so what we think we need to focus on in this debate is harm reduction. If we're focused on the health of the individual, we don't think the way to respond to this is by banning tobacco usage on campus outright, but rather to educate students on ways that they can actually quit. If this is truly as addictive as cocaine, then telling students that they have to stop outright is not a realistic solution. If it is that addictive, you have to believe students will find ways to get around security to use this. And I will talk about this later in my speech, how this ban will in no way inhibit students from using tobacco, but simply drive them to use it in more dangerous ways. And so, to talk then about the second point, which is about secondhand smoke. They talked about how second smoke is dangerous and how secondhand smoke makes smoking something that puts other people at risk. We're not going to disagree with this. And while we would point out that walking through 1 to 2 smokers while you go into Olin has not been ever shown in a study to cause long-term health benefits, we'll put that aside for now. Because all of the research that's been done on secondhand smoke has to do with sitting in an office building for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, while other people smoke constantly. That's not the kind of secondhand smoke exposure we see at Bard, but again, we're going to put that aside for a minute. The fact is, when it comes to secondhand smoke, this resolution is not going to address that problem. What we're going to see with smoking, if this resolution is passed, is we're going to be seeing smokers driven inside. Just like bans on marijuana and alcohol ban the use of those practices inside your dorms, a ban on smoking is just going to drive smoking inside your dorm. And you might not mind so much to walk through the telltale dope smoke as you walk to your room, but you will probably mind if your entire hallway is filled with tobacco smoke because people don't want to incur a $50 or $100 fine from security. The fact is that driving smoking inside, which is what this resolution will do, will increase fire risk, increase secondhand smoke exposure, and increase cigarette butt litter because people aren't going to have ashtrays to put these things out with, so they'll put them out wherever they possibly can. So the fact is, we don't see any kind of harm reduction, we don't see any kind of health benefit from this plan. The fact is that for all of their bilious talk about how we're going to expand health services, which, come on, they're not even open on the weekends, so fat chance there. We really would like to say that the way we focus on getting students to be healthier is give them actual, viable alternatives to smoking. So perhaps we don't sell cigarettes in the campus store. Maybe we should sell snus, because it's actually been shown to reduce harms of tobacco intake, while also providing an option for people who aren't able to break their nicotine addiction. So we think that these 2 points fall. And now to get into building my own points about how this resolution damages and distorts the intellectual mission of the college. The fact is that health is not an end, but rather a means. It's a nice thing to have, but the fact is we think it's more important to be an independent and creative thinker and to exercise choice and flexibility, phrases which we ripped right from the Bard College mission. The fact is that we think that health is important to leading the life of an independent and free thinker. But you know what's more important to leading the life of an independent and free thinker? Independent and free thought. And now, while government seems to think today that it's impossible to choose to smoke, everybody does make a choice. People are not born smokers, at least not most of us. The fact is that you are born and you make the choice at some point to smoke, and we think that that is a choice to make. The fact is that if independent thought is what the Bard College intellectual mission is about, we think that it is independent thinking to decide which industries a person can support and which industries a person can't. It is independent thought to decide which health decisions are right for a person and which aren't, and we think it's independent thought to decide when, where, and why to quit, and when, where, and why not to. You came to Bard to learn how to make these decisions. You did not come to Bard to have them made for you, which is exactly what side government is advocating today. We won't contest that it's easier to live the well-examined life while not battling disease, that is, to be healthy, but we'd also argue that it's easier to live the well-examined life while being financially independent and by being spiritual, let's say. Now, we do think that Bard should provide resources to be all of these things, healthy, financially independent, and even spiritual, but we don't think it's Bard's place to actually force these aids to the well-examined life upon you. And that is because, and this is really the thrust of this argument, college offers you classes and lectures in which to cultivate independent and creative thought. And they offer you resources outside of those classes which can aid independent and creative thought, such as giving you transportation to spiritual services, or offering you a career development office to think about how to become financially independent, and even providing, as they already do under the status quo, opportunities to go through health services and try to quit smoking. We think all of these resources, these external aids to the well-examined life, are good things, but we think once they become forced upon you, once Bard decides it knows which aids to your intellectual life are best for you, it has decimated its own academic and intellectual purpose, not so much cultivating free, independent thought as distributing it out wholesale. So we think to preserve the independent and creative thought of the Bard College mission, that this resolution will fall, and that this point does stand. My second point is a brief one, and it's just about how this resolution further delegitimizes the place of security on campus. And it's a basic argument against prohibition. The fact is that students don't follow rules enforced by security because they don't believe in them and because they're inconsistently enforced, which is exactly what we see with rampant pot and alcohol use all across campus. We think that this exact ban is going to meet the same standards which allow those two practices to go about on campus. We think that what this does is it delegitimizes all practices of security, even the ones that students do believe in, because security goes about exacting such arbitrary moralist rules as the one that side government is charging them with today. And we think this is a damaging one indeed. So to conclude the first half of side opposition speech today, we'd like to ask you if there is such a thing as independent and free thought at Bard. And if there is, it has to be something then that comes from you, and it has to be a choice that comes from you. Maybe you have the right to make dangerous decisions at Bard, but that is still your right, and it is still the mission of a college which hawks independent and free thinking and choice and flexibility in its very mission. For these reasons, and the reasons my partner will state, this resolution will and must fall. Thank you.